Hi, this is Paul. I wanted to share a few thoughts on what happened yesterday. I'm not really quite sure what happened yesterday because I kept going to this page and I kept clicking on the video thing and it has not begun. And I looked at 12 noon to 7 p.m. Washington. No, and then finally, but I was able to find a bunch of feeds on Twitter, and so I watched some of the speeches and some of the feeds, and then now if you hit watch replay, you'll get taken to Rumble, and there'll be like this big video with all of the speeches. And I haven't had a chance to really watch the speeches. I've just sort of skimmed through it and looked at little sections and listened to little sections. Jordan Peterson and Russell Brand praying the Lord's Prayer is something that was short enough and interesting enough to make Twitter. So that was very interesting. And of course, this little mural, of course, sort of this take on Washington crossing the Delaware. Yeah, so obviously there's Russell Brand. Is this Lady Liberty? I assume so. There's Donald Trump. I assume this is Kennedy. And there's Brett Weinstein. And I'm not sure who that is. There's Tulsi Gabbard. I didn't know who that woman was. There's Elon Musk, of course. Is that Jordan Peterson? Still not sure. Heather Heying, don't know who that is. Y'all can fill in the names down below. A few thoughts about this. And because I didn't really listen to the content, I'm not judging the content at all, but trying to get my mind around what this was and what this means. Now it wasn't a Trump rally. I didn't see Donald Trump speak at all. And it's super interesting to me because sort of how this has been talked about is that these people are sort of rallying around Trump, but I've never really gotten the sense that Donald Trump, how can I say it? I don't know that he's a team player. And I don't mean that as a criticism. You know, I've watched years of The Apprentice, and he does listen to his advisors and people he respects around them. But he also tends to basically, he's sort of like Captain Kirk in that he follows his gut. And he follows his gut sometimes in different directions, sometimes a little erratically. But so this whole thing sort of surrounding him kind of fascinates me because the idea seems to be, well, we're going to come alongside Trump, and then with Trump, we're going to help lead this coalition. And I just think the guy's most famous tagline is "You're fired." And so even if he wins and one or two of these people land a cabinet position, how long will they be there? I have no idea. And I also wonder what Donald Trump thought of this little mural. Because generally speaking, my impression, and I could very well be wrong, is that Donald Trump likes to be seen as large and in charge, and here he's one among many. And so I don't know. Those are just questions that I have. So those was one series of questions. Another group of questions was about, on Friday, I had a live stream about education and what's happening in terms of education. And it's not just university, it's also about formation. And Jordan Peterson made the point that basically you can get speeches from YouTube. And I haven't seen this on YouTube yet. I don't know if YouTube just doesn't really want to have anything to do with this whole thing. It's on Rumble and it's on Twitter. But what is sort of the heart of this event? And when I listened to Jordan talk with Brett Weinstein about it, it did sound like this is sort of, well, let's just try this. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, I'm working on just trying some things at Living Stones. I'm always working on just trying some things. So if you've got the reach and the backing that you can try a really big thing like this to see just how many people would show up and to see what kind of response this would get and what could happen in the following, hey, I'm certainly down for just trying things. And they certainly were able to grab a lot of people there. But then I keep looking for it being covered in, let's say, mainstream media, and that's like a zero. Which, think that as you want. Is that intentional, that the mainstream media basically sees that this is an important thing but decides not to cover it so as to keep its numbers low? Could be. Or is it really just something that's odd and they can't figure out what it is, so they ignore it? Or it just doesn't hit their relevance realization or their salience, and so they just ignore it. So I don't know. And I'm super curious to hear what you think, because you who leave comments always give me new ideas to think. And in almost any situation over the last 7 years since I've been making videos, I do read the comments, and I almost always gain from them. And even if a comment is critical of me, I can almost always take something away that I think, yeah, well, they might hate my guts or think I'm an idiot or all of those things. But when I listen to them talk, I can learn from it and I can gain from it. So I'm really curious, and I'd really love to hear from people who were there. I'd love to know audience size. How many people did it actually attract? I don't know that. I don't know when they started planning this thing. I'm not entirely sure of. Often with if you're going to have a big event like this, it's usually helpful that there be one clear outcome from the event. For Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Washington, D.C. in 1963, ending Jim Crow and civil rights legislation for African Americans, the one thing. Abortion rallies, maybe it's abortion, that's the one thing. A campaign rally, elect our candidate, that's the one thing. Part of what I wonder about is that way back, if you go back to Occupy Wall Street and some of those kinds of movements, and then even some of the protests that we saw happening during the pandemic, a big rally to promote a vibe. There's an old saying about preaching: a fog in the pulpit is a mist in the pew. And it basically means that unless you are sort of able to take everything in here and say one thing out of it, it just sort of like, yeah, I went to that thing. And I like this talk. I like that talk. It was kind of exciting. I met some friends there. It was kind of cool. It was a thing. But what do you get out of it? Now, again, I didn't listen to the speeches, so maybe the one thing was, well, we have to defeat Kamala Harris. That might have been the one thing. And then there's a thing. And I think just generally speaking, a number of the people there believe that. But was that then the driving message that was sent? Maybe it was. And then maybe what I've just said right now is moot. But I just haven't had the time to sit down and listen to this. So I wonder if any of you did. And I wonder if any of you attended it. And I really wonder what you thought. And so there's a comment section. And so go ahead and leave a comment and let me know what you think, because I'm super curious. And so part of what I sort of compare this to, even though the two things are miles apart, is that I'm still sort of processing what the Northwestuary Conference, including the Chino Conference and the Thunder Bay Conference, but especially what the Northwestuary Conference did for, let's say, the estuary movement. And because, after the ARC conference in London, I made a series of videos about that. The one thing I came away from that conference with was, I'm not sure if this format does I'm not sure what this format does anymore in an age when we are simply bombarded with speaking on the news and on YouTube and in podcasts. And so that I wonder if you're trying to provoke a transformation, what is the locus of that transformation? Is it in individuals? Is it in a spirit, or you're attempting to create a body? And if you're attempting to create a body, well, I tend to think that. So somebody, shoot, who was that? I was listening to. Oh, it was Gavin. It was Gavin. Gavin made such a beautiful little video. Gosh, I want so much to make some clips of some of these videos and get them out there on the channel, because Gavin's tiny channel, hardly anybody's going to see it. But as our commons continues to morph and be changed by video and all of this, and as we try to figure out what sorts of bodies, subtle bodies, we need moving forward, how are these bodies formed? Are these bodies formed by speakers on platforms? Are these bodies formed by distributed videos that go viral? So, again, I'm just curious, and again, weekends are busy for me, but I'd love to hear if any of you were there and what you thought. So, just a little video.